It's way too cold outside, so I am not trying it. I got my tripod ready and everything. I got my gloves on, etc. I was gonna walk down to the park near my house, see the beautiful snow on the trees, sit in the forest, sit in the park. It's just too damn cold. I got halfway there, not even halfway there, and I turned around. So I'm in the car. So I know some people do not like car videos. There's just no way around it today. So today I want to talk about trying different approaches to how you work through a song, the process through a song. So in particular, like in a DAW, the way your workflow is, the way my workflow is, typically I'll do one song in a session. And I did see some videos recently. People are trying to do Johnny Matza again. Shout out to Johnny Matza. He did an entire album in a day. That's not something that interests me. It's interesting to see or to hear and listen, but it's not something that I would want to do. I think I don't want to say I'm a perfectionist, but I would want to spend more time developing melodies and developing a song. But I would modify that, right? So while I wouldn't want to do an entire album in a day, I think it's worthwhile, especially given the way I work and the way I craft. I think it would be worthwhile to commit to a song in a day, like entirely, because the way that I work on music a lot, is I'll get a beat down or I'll get a melody down, I'll get drums down, and then I'll write the lyrics and I'll kind of perfect the lyrics for a day or two. And then I record. And after I record, that's when I make a lot of my changes. So the instrumentation changes. I might add a few more instruments. I, do different things with the drums. I do effects. I do automation, all that stuff, right? And then the mixing. Okay, so, given that, especially with the mixing, it might take me 2 weeks to finish a song, and that's a lot of commitment, a lot of time. So I think it'd be really interesting to try to do a song, not including the mixing, but do a song where you're committing to every aspect of it. And in particular, I'm talking about an instrumental right now, but I would like to do this with writing too. But so I started working on a project I'm finally committing to. I've had this idea, this conceptual project in mind for at least a decade. And, it's going to involve like audio samples and people talking and a call-in show. And so what I plan to do is, can I accomplish everything about the song, the instrumentation changes, the instruments that I would use, and commit to it in one day and be happy with it? Not, return to it in a week and adjust this, modify that, like literally be happy with everything outside of the realm of the actual mixing. I think that's something that I would that it just interests me. I think that's kind of sparks some creativity. It sparks some new initiatives and motivation around it. And so I started working on that. I got one down yesterday. I wasn't happy with it. Okay, so then I moved on, and now I'm happy with this new track that I'm working on. Same concept, just a different track, different beat, and it's going really good so far. I'm real close to it being completed, to be honest. And so yeah, that's where I'm at. Another point I wanted to talk about was like in the session. I've seen people that Johnny Matza, I think he said he did the entire album in his Reaper session. Okay, that's interesting. That would take a lot of space, and because of that, for me, like in using Reason, that would be a huge session. And if I close that thing, it's going to take like 10 minutes to load it the next time I open it. So I don't know that I want to approach that. But I do like the idea of maybe doing 2 songs in a session. You know, if I've got a 2.5 or 3 minute instrumental, what's the harm in, you know, putting some space in between it and doing another track using some of the same instruments, and obviously the same tempo, beats per minute. I think that would be fun. One, it's going to cut the mixing in half if I'm using the same instruments, so that's a plus. I would have to double things, right? So, for example, if I use and double things, I mean double tracks. If I use, like, Reason has a sampler called Mimic, I can only load one piece of audio into that, and I can slice it up however I want. But if I'm doing another track and I need an audio sample, I'm gonna have to have a separate instance of that sampler. So there is that. You're obviously doubling some of the instruments and effects. So in effect, you are kind of doubling the space that's required. But there's probably some instruments where I don't need to do that. For example, like a piano. So Reason has radical piano. If I decide to keep the same piano sound, I'm just creating new melodies in the same instance. So that's gonna work out great. So I'm real curious about that. I think it kind of it would be cool to, like, piece together an album with different sections versus, like, okay, I've got 10 tracks now. Do they all fit, you know, separately? I think to kind of compartmentalize that, I think that makes it a little more interesting. And yeah, I feel like I'd be making more progress that way. Like, okay, here's part 1. That's done. There's 2 songs on here, and then do a different session. Here's part 2. That's done. Before you know it, you got like an EP. And yeah, so another thing I want to do is I kind of want to limit myself. What I'm definitely doing is limiting the amount of instruments that I'm using and limiting myself to particular instruments. So I've got this really cool synthesizer instrument. I'm not going to stray away from that. You know, there's different patches on it. I'm using that. That's going to be on every track. Probably going to use that radical piano on every track. I'm using a beat map for the drums. I really love that. You know, some people, there's good and bad uses of, like, essentially what is AI in music. I really find beat maps helpful. It's like having a drummer with you. I mean, I still make changes, I still make adjustments, I still make decisions. So that's still part of the creative process, but it really helps, you know, if I can say in my head what I want a drum to sound like and then find it through a beat map, it just saves a lot of time and it sounds a lot better than if I kind of map it out. Now, sometimes I still do the mapping out, but yeah, I'm just trying to find ways to just jump into the creative realm and be more efficient with my time and just my, you know, what's the word, my capacity, right? The energy I've got. There's only so much energy in a day, and so much time in a day, so much energy I've got. So that's the other thing I'm thinking of. So beat maps on the drums, not ashamed to say it, still making decisions, still choosing sounds, and also using scales, like chord, what's the word? It's a player, okay, but so using it for chords and also kind of using it for filtering out and having a map to look at, or a what's the word? Like a diagram to look at of what's in G major, like what keys are in G major. I'm doing that as well. And that's helpful when, you know, if I do like the synths and I only do G major chords and notes in the synthesizer, if I go over to the piano, I also restrict it to G major there. And so that's kind of cool. I really like doing that. Like I know what notes are going to sound good. And it's also like you're practicing your scales and everything. So that's pretty cool too. So I'm doing that as well. So even the beat I did today, the synths were chords, and I'm just playing individual notes, but they'll play automatic chords given the player that I'm using. It's essentially, an instrument or an effect. I guess that's an instrument, right? That's kind of restricting. A lot of MIDI controllers have that now. You can go into like scale mode or chord mode, and just by hitting E, it's going to do E minor or whatever scale you're in. That's going to determine that. So I'm using that. So in the end, it's like, how can I be more efficient? And you can say that's cutting corners, but it's really about having a goal of getting to the creative plane and trying new things, getting out of my comfort zone so that I can be more productive and get out of this, what I talked about in a recent video is about, creative blocks and like feeling like I'm in a slump and maybe I'm being too hard on myself. But that's where I was at. And this is kind of reinvigorating me, this whole process. So yeah, that's the idea. I'm going to work on a conceptual album. It's instrumental. There are going to be voices in it, maybe some of my own, but no rapping, no verses, just pure music, stuff that you can that you find intriguing, but can also be in the background. And of course, limiting myself to just a few instruments so it doesn't get overcomplicated. I want to have like a set of parameters, basically, right? Like, it's not like I'm limiting myself. It's just trying to be more efficient. I'm not like cutting myself off. I'm more. It's more making the right decisions based on experience. That's what it is. It's like, I've got tracks in the past where there's like 20 some tracks, and the mix ends up sounding like shit, frankly, because there's just too many tracks competing for the musical landscape, the sonic landscape. And so I feel like if I limit myself to like 4 instruments, including drums, right? Bass, drums, synthesizer, piano, maybe something else, another synthesizer, like 5 tracks. I think 1, it makes the music cohesive, and 2, it just ensures like every sound has its place and space in the track, and it can be heard, and it's just going to sound good. So that's where I'm at. So this video is really just about finding another way to create new music, do something differently, get out of my comfort zone, and I hope by sharing this, you try and do something similar, or find something that sparks inspiration for you, something that you're going to try that you've never done in the past with your DAW, whatever it may be, Ableton, Reason, Cubasis, what are the other, Studio One, PreSonus. There's so many out there, Reaper, etc. Get to work and have fun. Thanks.